Hi everyone, now I'm going to react to another Let No One Change video. This one is your How I Deal with Severe Anxiety and Depersonalization, I believe. So the link will be in the box below. The Hey Guy YouTube channel. So
welcome back to my channel.
I really recommend you guys to try out her YouTube channel. Her YouTube channel is called That's No Trick.
Much a part of my life.
She posts great videos. She makes amazing content.
Let you guys get to know me a little bit better.
She has got over 2,000 subscribers.
I have dealt with for a really long time that I'm sure hundreds, millions of people out there
very well on YouTube
is severe anxiety.
You can see that she is a nice, kind, respectful, wonderful, lovely, beautiful person.
And the things that I do to cope with severe anxiety and my diagnosis is panic disorder and severe anxiety and depersonalization.
I think that's about it for now.
So a lot of you know what anxiety is, where you get, some people get panic attacks, some people just have it
deserves to have most subscribers, so please go and subscribe to her.
Panic disorder.
Watch her videos, leave likes, comment.
I don't have like severe panic attacks as much anymore.
To do very well on YouTube.
But I do have anxiety on an everyday basis.
Why I am reacting to her videos and give her like the hours because I want to help her out.
Just a little bit of a backstory.
Because I always have people out like using no shout outs on my YouTube channel and on my social media.
I know some things did make me nervous.
And it does
maybe it was slight, nervousness. Like when I was little, I remember that my mother used to tell me that I was like
this
terrified
reaction
of
video will
birds,
be split into
like
3
animal,
parts.
I was absolutely terrified. But growing up, I don't remember
the 3 parts
having
will be
panic
roughly
attacks
12 minutes
or any
long.
issues like that. So in 2009, I was dating a guy, and I had never smoked weed, and I made the mistake of smoking, and mind you, this is just my experience, so I don't want people to think that I'm advocating for not smoking, because I know that marijuana does help a lot of people, but for myself, this was my experience. So, it was Christmas night, and I had smoked with an ex-boyfriend of mine, and I remember that we were in my van, and that I had at the time, and I had smoked for the very first time, and we were listening to music, and all of a sudden I got this huge like adrenaline rush. Mind you, we were listening to like hip-hop music in the car, and I started to feel
have
like
any of you guys listen to hip hop music, or are you a fan of hip hop music? Let me know in the comments below.
If he either laced the weed, or if I smoked too much, or if I inhaled it too hard. I don't know, because I wasn't used to smoking. I never did. So, mind you, I get out of the car. It was like midnight, Christmas night. And as soon as I stepped out of the car, I felt immediately different. And I don't know if that's what they call being high, but for me, this was more than just a high. So I get out of the car, and as I stepped onto the ground, I couldn't feel, like, I knew I was stepping onto the ground, but I couldn't feel myself stepping. I kind of felt as if I was floating on a cloud. So I'm just like, whoa, what the hell is going on, right? So all of a sudden, I start to feel like, even though I know I'm physically there, I don't physically feel myself attached to my body. So I started to feel like I was observing my body as an outsider from up here. So I was there, present, but I was physically observing my body from above. And I could see all of my physical actions, but I did not feel connected physically to myself, if that makes sense. It almost felt as if, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Invisible Man with Kevin Bacon. I think that's what it's called. where he's invisible. There's a movie with
I
Kevin
never watched
Bacon that
movies
he's
before.
physically, he does some type of injection that turns him invisible.
Heaven was, I think I by
That's
Daniel
how I
Blake.
felt. Like, I knew I was physically there, but I could not feel my body whatsoever. I felt like I was one with the air. Mind you, to go from not feeling,
I'm
to
filming this
feeling
in
normal
February
to
time.
feeling
I'm all
that
water free.
is absolutely terrifying.
But you never know.
That sensation that happened to me that night is
Because
called depersonalization,
this video will be
years and
out
years and
sometime
years
in
of
September
research,
time.
therapy, psychiatrist.
And I wonder where I will be
you could think of, I've done.
when we get to
So
September.
I do have a lot to say about this because, I mean, I'm not a therapist, obviously, or a psychiatrist, but this is my experience, and I have dealt with this since 2009. Mind you, I still deal with it till this day, and it's 2019. So, after I got out of the car and I went into the house, I asked him, I was like, what the fuck did you give me? And he started laughing, and he's like, ha ha ha, you're a ghost. And somehow that triggered something in my head where I started shaking like I was like this. I was shaking like an epileptic. I was laying in bed, trembling, shaking. I could not stop shaking. Freaking out, and in my head I had like this feeling physically and in my head of impending doom, that I was dying, that I was going to disappear into thin air, and just that was it. I physically felt like I was dying, and I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was my blood pressure dropped, my sugar dropped. I didn't know what it was. So I'm over here like pouring literally salt in my palm and eating salt out of my hand, thinking that my blood pressure was low. Mind you, that it was just in my head that my blood pressure had dropped and I was dying. Nobody can convince me otherwise. So I was shaking. This experience was absolutely traumatizing. I had never questioned reality, and I had never questioned if I was real. This changed my entire perception of myself and everything I knew about life, everything. So I got into the shower. He got me into a cold shower, and I get out of the shower, and one minute I blink and he's right in front of me. The next minute I blink and he's all the way across the living room. The next minute I blink again and he's right in front of me. The next minute I blink and he's across the room. And it was absolutely terrifying because I had no control over it because I didn't know what was happening. So this went on for hours. I walked into the living room. I remember my children were little. And yeah, that's a terrible parenting. Terrible parenting. I'm not judging anybody, but me, I felt guilty for smoking that night. I know hundreds of people do it, but I had never smoked. I had never done marijuana. I had never done drugs. So to me, it was just like, I felt really guilty. So I remember my kids were asleep, and I walked into the room. When I walked in to kiss them goodnight, it was Christmas night, I remember in my head, I promised I wasn't going to cry. But I remember in my head, I really want to tell this story without getting emotional, but when I kissed them goodnight, in my head, I was saying goodbye to them because I felt like I was dying, that I was going to die, and that I was never going to see my kids again. So, yeah.
Something has lots of positive thoughts and hugs.
I laid down in bed and I started just like trying to distract my mind, scrolling through my phone. I did not know what was wrong. I had family and friends calling and texting Merry Christmas and all kinds of stuff, and I didn't want to tell anybody what was going on. That was that night. So I laid in bed with my ex, and I'm just watching. I remember that time seemed to have gone by really fast. Like I lost track of time, and it seemed like 1 minute I was looking at the clock and it was 2 a.m. The next minute I blinked and it was 4 a.m. The next minute I blinked and it was 6. Like time just like I lost track of I lost time. I did not know what happened. And he swore left and right that he did not lace the weed. So the next day I woke up and I felt completely like out of it. but I could barely talk because what happened the night before was so traumatizing to me mentally that I could not fathom not being in touch with reality, and I didn't know it was wrong, and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. So, he swore up and down that he didn't, and I couldn't even talk. He invited me to dinner. We were supposed to go to dinner with his family that night, and we did. And the whole time, you know, I see everybody having fun, and I just, in my head, I was so fucked up from that night that I honestly thought that I had died the night before, and that I was imagining all of this shit happening, but I had already died. This is how fucked up this whole situation was. So we went to his family's house. I went back home, and then like a couple days later I had to go back to work. At the time I was working as a nursing assistant, and I was also helping people enroll in insurance. So I had my own office at the clinic that I worked at, and I had to see clients. I had to see a bunch of clients and help them apply for insurance. So I remember they would come into the office and everything would be completely distorted. The office would look like the walls were literally caving in on me, and it was terrifying. I had to leave every single day early and freaking out, shaking, like just freaking out. And as soon as I would start to feel anxious and that things felt weird around me, I felt that same feeling of detachment from my body. I would feel it again. Mind you, I never smoked again after that night, and I still felt completely detached from my body, where any little thing would make me feel like I wasn't real. Driving, I had to drive and look at my hands, and my hands did not feel like they were physically attached to my body. I knew I was there. I knew what was real,
so
but what I felt, my perception